Hello again and welcome. I'm Rav Mo, and this is episode number 13 of It Begins With Us. We're looking through the opening passages of the Torah to find the relevant and personal messages that will give our lives more meaning and inspiration. Last time we looked at an overview of the creation of human beings, recognizing that there are not one but two stories of the account of humans' creation, one in chapter 1 that describes the majesty and divinity of humans, and chapter number 2 that describes the frailty and mortality of human beings. And we saw last time that only the dialogue of those two senses of what it means to be a human actually helps us to refine and reach the truest and most authentic sense of who we really are. Today, I want to end day 6, and in doing so, I want to further a discussion that we began previously on this series, which is, what is the role of evil in this existence? And today, I want to try to see if evil can be used more than just what not to do, but maybe evil itself has a function that nothing else in this universe could do. So, let's take a look at the passage that ends off day 6, and we'll notice something unique. We said that the ends of the days of creation, God always evaluates that day. And God said it was good. But today is slightly different. The verse, which is chapter 1, verse 31, reads, Vayar Elokim es kol asher asa, and God saw all that he had done. V'hine tov ma'od. Behold, it was very good. Very good. Not just good, very good. Now, you and I, in common parlance, use the word very to describe the difference between something we like and something that we like a lot, right? The tuna sandwich was good, but the aged steak was very good. But when we're talking about the language of God, what does very actually mean? God creates something in its perfect state. It fits exactly within the universe as it was intended, fulfilling its function to a T. What could be better than good? When God says something is good, it is the height of its goodness. What does very good mean? So the Medrash, the oral Torah, asks this question and gives a most fascinating answer. It says, on day 6, something good was created. What was created that was good? That's the Yetzer Tov. The positive inclination, the inclination to do good in human beings. Because as we recall, day 6 was the creation of humans. And along with the creation of humans was the creation of everything inside of us that wants to be moral, that wants to connect, that wants to see the world as a bigger picture and to align ourselves with that bigger picture. That's good. But what's very good? The Midrash gives such a fascinating answer. Very good is the creation of the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, that which causes us to want to be arrogant and selfish and egotistical and to possibly be cruel and insensitive to others. That's called very good. What does that mean? What does that mean? How can evil be described as very good? So one simple way of explaining it is the following, that good on its own can only be good. When you have something positive in the world, that's fantastic. But when it is contrasted to evil, now good itself becomes very good. When I have the ability to choose between connecting, helping a fellow versus pushing them down and stepping over them for my own gain, when I do the former instead of the latter, when I choose to connect instead of disconnect, now all of a sudden that action is way more impressive because I could have chosen evil. So maybe that's what it means. Well, that would be fine, except for the fact that the Midrash itself seems to imply not that way. The Midrash concludes, it says, what does it mean that the evil inclination is very good? Well, says the Midrash, without the evil inclination, no one would ever get married, no one would ever have children, no one would ever build a building on this earth. Now that is so strange. What is the implication? What does that mean? Does it mean that any time a person wants to get married, it's only because of some base, selfish desire? Anytime somebody builds a building, it's for evil profiteering? Could it not be a desire to want to make the world a better place, to want to connect to another human being, to want to have children in this world? How could the evil inclination be the source of that? So in order to understand that, let's return back to the definition of evil that we outlined earlier in this series. We said that evil, the word in Hebrew for evil, is ra, which means, in many contexts in the Torah, broken off from its source, right? We said that the word that's used on Rosh Hashanah to signify the broken up notes is a teruah, whose root is ra, meaning evil. And so ra, evil, means broken off from its source, something that sees itself as narrow and limited. That's what evil is. Now, in the worst sense possible, that means I can murder someone else. It means I can totally disregard the health of my environment. And we also said that evil means that I can disregard my future self, that I can choose in the present something that I know is not positive for the greater me. But because I'm trapped in this narrow sense of self, I'm broken off from my whole, it's therefore entirely possible for me to choose that. That's in the worst sense of evil, but is there a more subtle concept of evil? An evil inclination that doesn't necessarily mean actively doing bad things to other people and myself? So to answer that, we turn to the great rabbi philosopher of the 20th century, Rabbi Destler. Rabbi Destler quotes a favorite of ours on this series, Ramban, Nachmanides. And Ramban himself quotes, I apologize, there's a quote inside of a quote inside of a quote. Rabbi Destler quotes Ramban, who then himself quotes none other than Socrates. And he says, Socrates and many of the great Greek philosophers would praise themselves in the ability to detach emotionally from this earth. He said the philosophers of Greece used to say, I neither feel joy from the great events of this world, nor sadness from the tragic events of this world. That I've gotten to a point where I've reached such a high level of intellect that I realize that everything is an illusion, that everything is transitory, and therefore I feel no attachment to it whatsoever. The Ramban says, that's not a Jewish value. We see all over the Torah the greatest patriarchs and matriarchs who mourn the loss of their children. Jacob, who weeps for years over the loss of Joseph. And others who are completely and utterly ensconced in joy when something good happens in the world. It is not the height of Jewish perfection to say and to brag that we no longer feel anything in this world. There was once a story about the great rabbinic judge, Rabbi Krasinski, of the early 20th century and late 19th century, who heard that far away in Europe there was a man who was an unbelievable Talmud scholar. And at that time, Rabbi Chaim Ozer was looking for a replacement on his Jewish court, the Beit Din. And so he traveled across Europe to go find this man. And as he arrives in the town, he finds that this rabbi, this rabbinic figure, happens to be sitting Shiva and mourning the loss of a close family member. But what he saw stunned him, because this rabbi was not crying. This rabbi was smiling. And he said to the throngs of people who were visiting this scholar, he said, everything God does is for the good, and therefore we should accept this with absolute joy. And he smiled as he said this. Rabbi Chaim Ozer took one look, turned around and got back on the train and said, a man like that who cannot cry at a funeral is not fitting to sit on a Jewish court. So we as Jews do not value the idea that it's possible to detach ourselves entirely from this world. As in the language of some religions, that the height of spirituality is to be like a drop of water that rejoins the ocean, where we realize the transitory nature of everything and just sit in infinity. That cannot be what we as Jews are trying to achieve. Instead, we are meant to be invested in the good of this world, the positive things that happen to us and to our family and to everyone else, and to be sad, to mourn. Some of the greatest rabbis, their students watch them reading a newspaper, and a newspaper is not known for its good news. And they would watch as their rabbi would dare to read a newspaper, and simply on the front page they would burst into tears to see how much sadness tragedy and death there is that's happening every single day? Do we dare to read a newspaper that way, to invest ourselves emotionally in what's actually going on in the world? But what is it that causes us to feel that attachment, that investment? Rabbi Destler says that is none other than the evil inclination, the Yetzer Hara. It's the part of us that's possible to understand that you and I are not just part of God. It's possible for us to see ourselves as just broken off enough from the whole that we have an independent identity, that we have an existence on this earth, that we care about being alive. That's also Ra in a certain sense. Not evil in the classical sense that you and I discuss evil, but in a sense where we recognize that there's a me. There's a little bit of a sense of me. And with that little bit of a sense of me, I have skin in the game. I have a stake in the world. And that's what makes me look around the world and say, you know what? This world's not built up enough. Let me make a building. You know what? There's something beautiful in the other. I feel love towards an other. Let me get married. You know what? I want to perpetuate the generations of Jewish children. Let's have kids. If there was no sense of me, no sense of self, then we would be far too detached emotionally to care about doing anything productive in this world. See, the evil inclination is that same force that can cause us to be cruel, to hurt, to kill, to ignore, and to not be forces of progress in this world. And so what we want to do is we want to limit and reduce that sense of evil to just an extent whereby all we have left of the evil inclination is that we want to make the world a better place. That there's still enough of an identity to retain, that I still feel like I have something riding on the future of the universe. That's the ma'od. That's the very good of day 6. That you're right. Having a good inclination and wanting to be moral is amazing. But it's also recognizing that you and I could make the world a better place. That's very good. That's something that guarantees a future. That's something that guarantees that the world is not a static place, but rather we are entrusted with building it up, with seeing the potential of what the world could be and not just what it is. So, I think we all learned something about evil today. That first of all, the definition of evil is much more all-encompassing than we previously thought. But not only that, that the sense of self, the sense of slightly feeling broken off, is what actually helps us to contribute to the betterment of the world itself. So, do yourself a favor and do the world a favor. Harness your evil. Take the good, but just take a slight sliver of that Yetzer Hara, that evil inclination, enough so that you feel emotionally attached to this world to want to make it a better place. And I think with that, we'll conclude the creation of human beings on day 6. So I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, listening. Stay tuned for next time when we will discuss day number 7, none other than Shabbos, Shabbat. Take care, everyone.